So are you worried about competition within your industry? Would you go to a customer's house and if that customer said, oh, we've had a cheaper quote, would you be prepared to knock your price down a little bit? I think this is a concern for a lot of tradespeople, or women, tradesmen, tradespeople, because when they start up on their own, how are you going to win the jobs if you're not competitive? Especially if you're used to being employed. Well, when you're employed, you just turn up, you do the job, you know you're getting paid the same amount, whatever happens. It's just that one day you're at a customer's house and you sort of mistakenly find out, hang about, they're paying twice as much as I'm getting paid here. So my boss is getting like my wages for doing nothing. This is what you assume. So then that's what plants a seed in your head to think, I can do this on my own. It makes you think, could I charge double for my services and start up my own business and do all this, everything's myself? So do you want to know the answer to that question? Stick around, you're about to find out. ToolBox talks for electricians, helping electricians reduce stress, gain back time, and earn more money. Hello and welcome back to ToolBox Talks for Electricians. My name is Ben Poulter, your host, and today's podcast I think is a pretty interesting conversation among electricians or among all tradesmen, to be honest. I think because there's so many different opinions to self-employed, to being employed, the pros and the cons. The employed guys, they say, well, you get paid exactly the same every week on time. And I get it, it's security. If you need that in a time, everybody's different. If everyone was the same, the world will be boring. So everyone's different and everyone's situation is different. So if you need to get paid a certain wage to cover all your bills, then that's fine. That's what you do. You go get employed. Being self-employed, yeah, you might not get paid for a couple of weeks or sometimes a couple of months, depending on the size of the job. But then when you do get paid, that works out to getting paid a lot more as employed and getting that set wage a week. It's a good lump sum, so you've got to be good with money and not get excited with like, yep, I've got a load of money, let's go out and spend it, buy that camper van or something like that. You've got to be quite good with your money, I'd say, to be self-employed. And then there's people that say, running your own business, man, it's stressful. You've got customers to deal with, you've got invoices to deal with, you've got wholesalers, you've got all this paperwork to keep up with. And to be honest with you, they're right. You have got to deal with all this. But in my eyes, I like doing something a little bit different every day. I like doing maybe invoices. I like doing quotes. I like meeting customers because doing the same thing every day. Not saying fixing electrics is boring, but it gets a bit repetitive when you're doing the same stuff. Say you've got 20 kitchen refits to do. All you're doing is wiring circuits, doing the same stuff. I like a bit of a change where you're not getting covered in dust and dirt all day. You're sitting at home tapping away on the computer. It's fun. I feel like if I was employed and I had to turn up at a certain time every morning and get told where to go and what to do and where to go get the materials and I don't know, sort of, I wouldn't feel in control of my life in a way. I feel like I was getting told what to do far too much. But don't get me wrong, there is some fantastic bosses out there, some fantastic companies to work for. And it's not all doom and gloom being employed. You can be employed by a fantastic company and they look after you pretty damn well. They ain't got a tracker on the van where they're keeping an eye on where you are, what time you leave in sight. They're quite good. But obviously to that, there's a flip side where there's a bleeding idiot bosses. Why did you nip down the shop in the van? Why did you move that sofa at the weekend? The van should have been sitting still all weekend. Yeah, and they're the people that just want you to basically be their slave, to do what you're told when you're told. And if you don't do what you're told, then they'll say, you're out of a job, mate. And needless to say, I've met a few of these people and I've quit a few of these jobs in my time as well. And I think this is another reason that maybe setting up on your own, becoming self-employed, running your own business, it can be dangerous. If you see some success, then you carry on, you have plenty of success, and yeah, there's no sort of turning back. You couldn't think of anything worse than turning up on a Monday morning with your boss to give you a job sheet saying, right, you're driving 2 hours down the road to sit on a cherry picker in the pouring rain, fitting outside lights. You're doing that all week. I suppose you have got the option to say, I've got man flu. So yeah, you can sit at home and get paid as well, but that's not very good work ethics, is it? But like I say, I'm not trying to put being employed down. There's some good bosses out there, and everyone's scenario is basically different. If you need to work for a boss, like a lot of the time when you're starting out on your own, you think, right, I need to get on the mortgage ladder. So you need to be employed. You need to have them bits of paper to show the mortgage company, to say, show your earnings is sort of consistent to be able to get the mortgage. And then as soon as you've got your mortgage, you jack it in and be self-employed. But you need that sometimes. So everyone's scenario is that little bit different. So in regards to being self-employed, let's say that you're self-employed and you've been called up by this builder to go out and quote to wire these 4 houses. Well, in my eyes, brand new builds and wiring out 4 houses would be a bit of a dream job. That's sort of a good money earner. It's starting from fresh. And as an electrician, you like to start things from fresh because you know that everything's going to be spot on because you're doing it all. And being a new build and being it so easy sort of thing, that'll probably more than likely reflect in the price as well. Like when you rewire a 4-bedroom house that someone lived in to being empty, there's going to be sort of £1,000 price difference because I want to get paid for moving things around. To be honest with you, I'll try and put £1,000 on because I don't really want to do it when people lived in. It's a bit of a nightmare. Obviously, I've done it before and I would do it again if the price was right. But yeah, when someone's living in a property and you're trying to rewire it, it can be a lot more difficult. So when you're doing a new build, 4 brand new plots just been built, that's going to be easy. So you're not going to charge the same price of what you do in a 4-bed rewire. Because in a new build, you know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to jump in there, maybe 3 or 4 days, get that first fix done, nip off, and then when you come back, you're going to do your second fix, probably just before the kitchen goes in. But the thing is, that builder has got your number from maybe Google. He hasn't been recommended at all, or you haven't been recommended. So you know for a fact that he's got, I don't know, 2 or 3 other electricians to come along to quote. Do you give them a quote and say, yeah, there might be a little bit of negotiation in that price? Or do you say, look, what's the other guy's quoted? I'll beat it by 10%. And then you come across like a bit desperate and you don't want to do that. In my experience, that first initial meeting, you'll know whether you got the job or not. Make sure that you make the best impression you can when you first meet that builder. You go through every detail. You have a little list to say, right, smoke alarms. How many do you want? Do you want it every room or just enough to be in the hallway and the downstairs? What about downlights? Do you want downlights? Do you want TV areas? Do you want Ethernet points? You give them so much detail and you just make a brilliant impression when you're first doing the quote, that you think, that you make them think, hang about, this bloke's a man for the job. He seems to know a lot about what he's doing. And then you could also go into detail how you plan to do the work as well. So, right, yep, we'll be here for a week. First fix it, get it all in, make sure everything's right. We'll get that signed off from you. And then obviously you can mention as well that there's intermittent payments as well to get paid for first fix and then get paid for second fix and then maybe a completion later on. You can let them know that in the quote as well. But I always like to mention it to the builder as well. Say, look, is it all right to do stage payments? Because you don't know what's going to happen sometimes, whether the builder's going to run out of money. So you want to make sure you get some sort of payment off them. And I like to explain to a builder as well, to say, right, yeah, when you're boarding all the ceilings and boarding everything in where they'll put the lights in, the down lights in, I've wired them out. I'll draw a little map or a diagram so I know exactly where they are, so I know exactly where to cut my holes. So when your plasterer comes along, he can just skim it right over. Don't have to worry about the holes. Do not pull my cables through the holes, because I guarantee you they will pull them through all different freaking places, all different wonky places. It'll look rough, and then they'll have a go at you because the paint decorator's got to patch them holes up. So you just explain to them little things like that. Maybe tell them a story about someone that did it once before, just to fill him full of confidence, because all you want to do is let that guy know in his head, this guy's a man for the job. He's going to do the best job he can, and it'll make my life easier with other trades. Maybe even get into the conversation about what's being fitted. Maybe if it's air source heat pump, you want to know the load. Ask him technical questions because you want to know the load of what supply you need to put in, because obviously that will reflect in the cable sizes and what's going into the kitchen, how you would separate it up with the ovens, the hob, and maybe the undercupboard lighting, anything like that. How you would separate it up to make that house tip-top perfect, because that's what you need to sell the person in the first place. Because if they're getting, I don't know, 5 or 6 quotes from electricians, you need to stand out from the rest. A lot of people, they turn up with a with a clipboard. They might say, right, what was your quote? 5 grand. All right, mate, I'll do it for 4.5. Yeah, I don't know. If a builder's got any savvy about himself, he's not going to go with that bloke. If he does, his skin is a bit anyway. You want to let that builder know that you're exactly the electrician he's looking for. Perfect, hassle-free, efficient, and very, very professional. The only thing that will happen after that is the builder he'll get 3 or 4 quotes. He'll have to meet them like he's programmed it in now. So he'll meet them and he'll get a quote off these other electricians, and it probably or will possibly could be cheaper than you. But then he'll ring you up and go, I've got another quote and it's sort of £1,000 cheaper. Can you match it? And this happens to me all the time. People have 3 or 4 quotes and they'll ring up and saying, yeah, I got another quote and it was cheaper. Could you match it? Well, why are you wasting my time calling me up? No, I'm sorry. My quote is my quote. And if you don't want me to do it, you've just told me you've got a cheaper one. Why don't you phone the guy up that give you the cheaper quote to say, right, mate, you've won the job? 9 times out of 10, because the bloke was a bleeding idiot. And he didn't come across like you. He didn't seem to know what he was talking about. He didn't seem like they could work with him efficiently and get the job done professionally. This is why they're phoning you up, because they want you to come, because how you initially met them in the first place. You sort of got along with them, and that's the best way, I think, what happens with me all the time. I get along. I'm a chatterbox, as you may well know, so I can chat away to a builder for an hour or two while doing a few quotes, looking at the drawings, and you seem to grow to like them. They become friends, and they want to work with you. Not just you're good at what you do, they want you to work with them, but obviously they've got a budget, and they will try and knock you down £1,000. And the reason that I'm more likely to charge what I charge is because of what I've got to cover. My insurances, my licenses, my qualifications, my tools, the efficient and the kit I use sort of thing. It's my knowledge that you're paying for. It's not just me to turn up and do the job. And a lot of other people, what if they're not insured? So they can do it a bit cheaper because they're not paying out insurance. Hang about, they ain't got much kit. It's going to do a bit of a Billy Bodge job. So more than likely it's going to take them twice as long and do a bit of a rubbish job. So they haven't got the overheads that you've got. So I'm not going to knock a load of money off my quote because I'll be out of pocket. Because in my eyes, this is what a lot of tradesmen do. They say, right, yep, I can do that for 10 grand, mate. Get in there. I need 50% up front for materials. So they'll get the 50% up front, get in there, throw a bit of cable around or Billy Bodge it a bit and scrap off, never come back. Well, you learnt your lesson the hard way there, didn't you? And this is when the builder thinks, oh, right, I should have went with that first guy in the first place that I phoned up. So they phone you up and they say, hi, we've had the cheap electrician in and he's wrecked it. Can you come and finish it off? He's done half of it. Yeah, no, thanks, mate. The reason he hasn't come back because he's done a rubbish job. It's happened a few times again. And like I'd say, you need to say to the builder, stick that on hold. Do not board the bleeding walls or dot and dab and stuff like that because I need to start from fresh. And you've got to start back at the original quote. That's what it's going to cost. To be honest with you, it's going to be twice as hard ripping out the bloody other idiot's work. I'd like to start from fresh. It's more likely going to cost you a little bit more for me to rip it out unless you're going to do it yourself. I know for a fact that a lot of tradesmen do this. They go in there at a stupid price and say, like, oh yeah, I'll do your garden for £500. And once they start the garden, they've probably got a common list of things. This drainage needs to go round, so now we need to move the drain, it's another 500. Or this is not mud, it's clay, we need to pay for it to get removed. That's another 500. There's always extra costs. And customers fall for it, unfortunately. This is how they should have done the due diligence, to be honest with you, and found out, got a reputable tradesman and maybe got it all down in paper. But they get ripped off, and this is what happens far too often. And the only thing is with that, if you're going to go in there and just, I don't know, rip the customer off and put a bad taste in their mouth, you're going to leave thinking, sugar, this job was going to cost £500, now it's turned out to be £2,000, which happens quite often. So that customer is going to think, damn, I am not going to ring that guy again because I didn't even thought it'd be £2,000. It's ripped me right off. It's gone over the top so much on this job. And they're never, ever, ever going to recommend that tradesman to anybody. No family, no friends. They're not going to recommend them to one person. If anything, they're going to go on social media and go, hey, check this company out. He's a bleeding idiot. And I'll tell you now, the main thing that you want from any customer is to recommend you. Because if they recommend you to someone at their work, they may recommend you to someone at their school when they're picking the kids up, they're their family and friends. That's what builds your business. Recommendations, when you work on that, you don't have to go out and do leafleting, marketing or anything like that. Word of mouth, you can't buy that. It is fantastic. You make a good impression with that customer and they're going to tell everyone about it. The thing is, with any reputation, it can take you over like 10, 12 years to build up. You can have a fantastic reputation, a shed load of work. It's just that one job, that one person that puts that flipping bad review on Facebook or anything, it can ruin you. You just might as well start from scratch. I think undercutting other tradesmen to win the job, it's a race to the bleeding bottom. If you think you're so desperate to get the job and you're saying, I'll knock a bit off there, mate, I'll do you a better deal. All that customer's going to do is phone up the other guy and say, now I found someone that's going to do it for cheaper. Will you match that? And you're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. End of the day, it's not going to be worth doing anyway. So what's the point in even budging in the first place? Because by the time you actually get to do the job, there's no profit in it. So you might as well be in a lollipop, that lady, for your local school. However much you want to build your business and become established and work your way up and get bigger and better over time, there's only one reason why you started to be self-employed, or basically the reason why you leave your house in the morning to go out working. It's to earn money. If you're not going to earn any money out of a job, there's no point. The amount of money that you charge to do a job, that should sort of stay the same as a ballpark figure, as a blanket when you sort of doing your quoted. The thing is, what gets better and what you charge more for and what you build your reputation on is the service you give. You don't say, I do a cheap service, because then you'll be known as the cheap electrician and then people will go, ring him up, he's cheap, ring him up, he's cheap. You don't want to be known as that cheap electrician. You're always getting paid pennies. You want to get paid pounds. So don't drop your prices. Basically, you want to be known as the good electrician. He did a lovely job. And a little secret here, electricians, tidy up after yourself. Trust me, sometimes get yourself a little Hoover. Henry the Hoover, your best mate, because customers love it. Oh, it looks like you've never even been here and you've got a brand new socket on the wall. Yep, that's because I tidied up. Don't tell everyone, but God's sake, we'll get slated electricians if they find out that we actually clean up. My God, we're renowned not to. I'm going to have to go out and throw some rubbish on the floor now, just to make myself feel better. And that's especially in the case that if a customer has been dealt with a bad builder before or a bad tradesman before. They've had an idiot come round that faffed something up. More than likely, they'll point it out to you anyway, saying, yeah, we had someone come round and do this. And you're like, yeah, I know, probably needs redoing. So you need to sort of, you build your reputation up with them like that. You need to be known as a good electrician. So then they'll say that, yeah, he was good, he was lovely, he was polite to my Persian cat, he didn't let out the house. Have you ever been to people's houses where they say, do not let the cat out? You think, damn, I'm in and out of the house all the time. I'm going to the van, getting a bleeding Wago or some screws or something. I've got to make sure, 100% in my head, I don't leave that door open. And I hate it when people have got these bleeding doors, the front doors, well, I don't hate it, but you know what I mean? It's one of the things that you shut behind you. So when you shut the door because you don't want to let the cat or the dog out, and when you go back from coming with the van, you've got to knock on the door again, on the doorbell. You feel like a bleeding idiot. Sorry, I locked myself out. I didn't want to leave the door open because the cat was going to get out. But doing little things like that and being polite. When you get a customer going for the cheapest and they're not interested in whether they're any good or not, they just want to know how much it's going to cost them. When they're going for that cheap quote, do you actually want to be doing work for them in the future anyway? Because even if you get along with them fantastic and you do a great job, the next time they're going to do exactly the same. We've got 4 quotes and you are the most expensive once again. Yeah, so you're going to knock me down once again. You can't be asked for that. Don't do it. Just don't bother. You don't want them as a customer. You could probably educate them in a little way to say, look, going with the cheapest quote, it could possibly end up in tears. Well, the thing is, you sound like you're trying to win the job all the time if you tell them that, because 9 times out of 10, if someone goes for the cheapest quote, it's cheap but for a reason, because it's crap. So, and then the customers end up regretting it over time. And the thing is, they're maybe a bit embarrassed as well, so they won't phone you up to say, can you fix what he's done? Because he's done a rubbish job and it trips off every time I put the washing machine on. So they just live with it. It's a bit like fitting an aftermarket part to your car. If you've got a nice car, you look after it, you take it to the garage, the mechanic thinks, yeah, I'll do you a deal here, I'll put this one on, this is a lot cheaper. So they put it on, but it's an aftermarket part and it doesn't sync with the car. So they say, yeah, it was £20 cheaper, but your engine light's going to be on forever because the car doesn't recognise it. That does my head in. Don't bother, mate. Put the original part on it so that engine light goes out. So that when engine light does come on, I know exactly what's wrong with the car. What's the point? Give me the choice. I don't want you to use cheap parts. I don't want you to save me £20. Give me the option. And this is the scenario where being a tight ass, it doesn't always work out. I've learned that lesson the hard way. There was a job, maybe 10 years ago now, where we did a rewire. It's a brand new build. This bungalow, and we put all these little, not little even, there were down lights, LED lights in the soffit. They were lovely, fancy, cool white. I think they were daylight from Amazon, and they were lovely. They looked good and nice and flush, and you thought, yep, these were good. I installed them, and it must have been the next 2 years I kept going back to try and replace them, to try and send them back to Amazon. It was just a bleeding nightmare. They were rubbish. So then we had to bite the bullet at the end and say, look, man, we're going to replace all the lights. They're all around the house. They were lovely soffit lights. They look fantastic. In the end, me and the customer, we had an agreement to say, look, let's replace a lot. Basically, they were crap. We gave them a go. They worked out. But then it was the time I had to go back and forth to change these bleeding lights we've got off Amazon. It was a waste of time. And then since we've replaced them for the decent LED colour changing all fancy down lights, I ain't been back once. So don't go cheap. It's going to save you money in the long run. So until next time, I'll see you again. I'm just going to pop in here to say, if you're liking the type of content which I'm creating on ToolBox Talks for Electricians, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and chuck a comment down there to let me know that you're alive. See you soon.